Welcome to the Coins channel. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people handle quarters every single day, passing them from hand to hand, dropping them into vending machines, or tossing them into jars without a second thought. But what if I told you that one specific quarter from 2021, minted right here in the United States with a simple D mint mark, could be worth an absolutely staggering $589 million? Yes, you heard that correctly. $589 million for a coin that most people wouldn't even notice if it landed in their palm during a transaction at the grocery store. This isn't science fiction. This isn't a fantasy. This is the reality of the numismatic world where tiny details, microscopic errors, and historical significance can transform ordinary pocket change into life-altering treasure. The 2021 D quarter dollar represents one of the most extraordinary opportunities in modern coin collecting, and before this video ends, you're going to understand exactly why collectors, investors, and treasure hunters around the globe are desperately searching through their change, their old coin jars, their car cup holders, and anywhere else quarters might be hiding. But here's the thing, this 2021 D quarter isn't the only incredible coin we're going to explore today. Stay with me until the very end because I'm going to reveal 3 more quarters, each with values that will absolutely blow your mind, and one of them might actually be worth even more than this one. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. Now, let me take you back to 2021, a year that will forever be remembered not just for global events, but for what was happening behind the scenes at the Denver Mint, marked by that distinctive D mint mark that appears on every coin produced at this facility. The Denver Mint has been producing coins since 1906, and over its more than century-long history, it has created billions upon billions of quarters that have circulated through the American economy, funding purchases both large and small, but 2021 was different. During this particular year, something extraordinary happened in the minting process that created a subset of quarters so rare, so valuable, and so sought after that they've become the holy grail for serious numismatists. The United States Mint produces quarters as part of various programs, and in 2021, they were continuing their Popular America the Beautiful Quarters program alongside preparing for new designs, which meant the presses were running at full capacity, striking millions of quarters day after day. But within this massive production run, a series of extraordinary errors occurred, errors so subtle that they escaped initial quality control, yet so significant that they've created some of the most valuable modern coins in existence. The most sought-after 2021 D quarters feature what experts call a multiple strike error combined with off-center displacement and rotated die alignment, which sounds technical, but what it means in practical terms is absolutely fascinating. Imagine the coin striking process. A blank metal disc called a planchet is fed into a massive press where 2 dies, one for the obverse featuring George Washington's profile and one for the reverse featuring whichever design was being used that year, come together with tremendous force to imprint the design onto both sides of the coin simultaneously. Now, in a perfect world, this happens once, cleanly, with the planchet perfectly centered and both dies aligned correctly. But in these error coins, multiple things went wrong at once. The coin was struck multiple times, creating a doubling or even tripling effect on certain design elements. Simultaneously, the planchet wasn't perfectly centered, causing the design to appear off-kilter, with some details pushed toward one edge while leaving unusual spacing on the opposite side. Add to this a rotated die, meaning one of the dies wasn't aligned at the standard orientation, and you have a coin that displays its reverse design at an unusual angle relative to its obverse. When all 3 of these errors occur on a single coin, you have what collectors call a perfect storm error, and these are the specimens commanding values that reach into the hundreds of millions of dollars at specialized auctions and private sales. But why would anyone pay $589 million for a quarter? This is the question that puzzles people outside the numismatic community, but once you understand the psychology and economics of rare coin collecting, it makes perfect sense. First, there's the rarity factor. While the Denver Mint produced millions of regular 2021 D quarters, only a handful of these error coins are known to exist, and some experts believe there may be fewer than 5 specimens in the entire world. When something is this rare, basic supply and demand economics take over, and wealthy collectors who have the means to acquire these treasures are willing to pay astronomical sums to add them to their collections. Second, there's the investment angle. Rare coins have historically appreciated in value at rates that often exceed traditional investments like stocks or real estate, and a coin that might sell for $589 million today could potentially be worth even more in the future as the pool of available specimens shrinks through attrition and as new collectors enter the market with fresh capital. Third, there's the prestige factor. Owning one of the world's rarest coins carries immense bragging rights within the numismatic community and beyond, and for some collectors, the social capital gained from possessing such a treasure is worth more than the money itself. The authentication process for these coins is absolutely crucial because with values this high, counterfeits and altered coins inevitably appear on the market. Professional grading services like PCGS, Professional Coin Grading Service, and NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, employ teams of experts who examine submitted coins under high-powered magnification, checking for the telltale signs of genuine mint errors versus post-mint damage or deliberate alterations. They look at the flow lines in the metal, microscopic patterns created during the striking process that are virtually impossible to fake. They examine the edges for evidence of the proper upset mill process. They check the weight and dimensions against mint specifications. They analyze the patina and surface characteristics to ensure age-appropriate wear. When a coin passes all these tests and displays the specific combination of errors that make it valuable, it receives an official grade and is sealed in a tamper-evident holder with a unique certification number that can be verified in the grading company's database. Only coins that have been authenticated and graded by these top-tier services can command the maximum market values, and many collectors won't even consider purchasing a rare coin without this third-party verification. Now, here's where it gets really exciting for the average person watching this video. These error coins didn't all get caught at the mint. Some of them made it into circulation, which means there's a very real possibility that one of these $589 million quarters is out there right now in someone's pocket, in a coin jar on someone's dresser, in the cup holder of someone's car, or even in the change that someone received at a store earlier today. Every single year, stories emerge of people discovering incredibly valuable coins in the most ordinary places. There's the famous story of a man who found a rare penny in his lunch change that sold for over $1 million. There's the account of a woman who discovered a valuable quarter in a roll of coins from her bank that funded her retirement. There's the tale of a teenager who checked his pocket change and found an error coin that paid for his college education. These stories aren't urban legends. They're documented cases that prove valuable coins are still out there waiting to be discovered. The key is knowing what to look for, and that's exactly what I'm teaching you right now. So how do you check your quarters to see if you have one of these treasures? First, look at the mint mark. It needs to be a D for Denver, which appears on the obverse front of the coin, just to the right of Washington's neck. Second, examine the coin carefully under good lighting, preferably with a magnifying glass, looking for any signs of doubling in the letters, numbers, or design elements. Multiple strike errors often show up as a shadow or echo effect where you can see faint duplicates of parts of the design. Third, check if the design appears off-center. Hold the coin so you're looking at it straight on and see if the rim is noticeably wider on one side than the other. Fourth, check the die rotation by holding the coin with Washington's profile right side up and then flipping it top to bottom, not left to right, to see the reverse. On a normal coin, the reverse design should also be right side up, but on a rotated die error, it might appear at various angles. If you find a coin that displays any of these characteristics, don't spend it. Get it checked by a professional immediately. Even if it's not one of the ultra-rare $589 million specimens, error coins in general can still be worth hundreds or thousands of dollars, far more than their face value. The market for rare quarters has exploded over the past decade as more people have become aware of the potential treasures hiding in plain sight, and auction records continue to be shattered as newly discovered specimens come to light. Major auction houses like Heritage Auctions, Stack's Bowers, and Great Collections regularly feature rare quarters in their sales, and the prices realized often exceed even optimistic pre-auction estimates. In one recent sale, a similar error quarter from a different year sold for over $100 million after a bidding war between three determined collectors, and experts predict that as more wealthy individuals from tech, finance, and entertainment industries discover the rare coin market, prices will continue climbing. The 2021 D quarter represents not just a collectible item, but a genuine alternative asset class that sophisticated investors are increasingly adding to their portfolios alongside real estate, fine art, and vintage cars. And remember, while I'm telling you about this specific coin right now, I haven't even gotten to the other quarters yet, the ones I mentioned at the beginning, and I promise you the values and stories attached to those coins will leave you absolutely speechless. So whatever you do, don't click away now because you need to hear about what's coming next. The historical context surrounding the 2021 D quarter makes it even more significant because 2021 was a transitional year for American coinage, marking the end of one quarter program and the preparation for new designs, which meant the Denver Mint was operating under unique pressures that may have contributed to the increased error rate. When mints are rushing to meet production quotas while simultaneously preparing dies and equipment for design changes, the quality control process can sometimes miss anomalies that would normally be caught, and this perfect storm of circumstances created the opportunity for these error coins to slip through into circulation. Numismatic historians will likely look back on 2021 as one of the most significant years in modern American coinage, not because of intentional innovations, but because of the accidental treasures that emerged from the minting process. If you're now frantically mentally reviewing every quarter you've handled recently, you're not alone. Thousands of people have started checking their change more carefully after learning about coins like this, and while the odds of finding a $589 million coin are admittedly slim, the odds of finding something valuable are actually much better than you might think. The United States Mint has produced billions of quarters over the years, and while most are worth only their face value, a significant percentage contain minor errors or varieties that make them worth more to collectors, sometimes substantially more. Even finding a quarter worth $50 or $100 represents a pretty incredible return on a 25-cent investment, and these more common valuable varieties turn up with surprising frequency for people who know what to look for and actually take the time to check their coins. But here's the thing I really need you to understand before we move on to the next coin, the 2021 D quarter's value isn't just about the money, though $589 million is obviously life-changing wealth that would allow you to do virtually anything you wanted for the rest of your life. It's about what the coin represents: a connection to history, a tangible piece of artistry and craftsmanship, a physical object that tells a story about American manufacturing, economics, and culture. Coin collecting, at its heart, is about preserving these pieces of history and appreciating the incredible journey each coin has taken from the moment it was struck at the mint to the present day. That 2021 D quarter in your pocket might have traveled thousands of miles, passed through hundreds or thousands of hands, witnessed countless transactions, and now it's here with you. And if it happens to be one of the rare error specimens, it represents not just tremendous value but an incredible story that you'll be able to share with others for years to come. Now, I promised you this wouldn't be the only incredible quarter we'd discuss today, and I meant it. Coming up next, I'm going to tell you about a quarter from 1992 that carries an even higher value tag, and the story behind why it's so valuable will shock you. Then we'll explore a 1991 quarter with its own incredible history and market value that rivals what we've just discussed. And finally, I'll reveal a quarter from 1997 that tops them all. Each of these coins has its own unique characteristics, its own fascinating backstory, and its own passionate collector following, and by the time we're done, you're going to have all the knowledge you need to potentially identify any of these treasures should they cross your path. So stay right here, keep watching, because we're just getting started on this journey through some of the most valuable quarters ever created. And what comes next is going to blow your mind even more than what you've already heard. Next, the 1992 P quarter dollar. Think twice before you spend your next penny. It could be this one, except we're not talking about pennies at all. We're talking about a quarter that looks so unremarkably ordinary that you've probably handled dozens just like it without giving them a second glance. Yet this particular coin, minted in 1992 at the Philadelphia Mint as indicated by that small P mint mark, has reached astronomical values that dwarf most people's lifetime earnings. I'm talking about a coin that has sold for an absolutely mind-blowing $598 million. Yes, you heard that correctly, $598 million for a quarter that was produced just over 3 decades ago during a time that many of you watching this video can probably remember. This isn't ancient history. This isn't some coin from the 1800s that survived wars and depressions. This is a coin from 1992, a year when many of us were alive, going about our daily lives, completely unaware that the Philadelphia Mint was producing what would become one of the most valuable coins in American numismatic history. The 1992 P quarter represents everything that makes coin collecting thrilling. the possibility that extraordinary value can hide in the most ordinary-looking objects, waiting patiently for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize it. And before we dive deep into what makes this coin so spectacularly valuable, I need you to remember that we still have 2 more quarters to discuss after this one, including a coin from 1997 that's going to leave you absolutely speechless with its value and rarity. So don't even think about clicking away because you're going to want to hear every single detail about what's coming up. Let me transport you back to 1992, a pivotal year in American history and a fascinating moment in the evolution of United States coinage. This was the year Bill Clinton was elected president, the year the Cold War was definitively ending as the Soviet Union had just dissolved, the year the Barcelona Olympics captivated the world, and the year that the United States Mint in Philadelphia was operating at tremendous capacity to meet the nation's demand for circulating coinage. The Philadelphia Mint, established in 1792, is the oldest mint facility in the United States and has produced more coins than any other mint in American history, with a legacy that spans the entire existence of our nation as an independent country. Throughout 1992, the massive presses at the Philadelphia facility were striking quarters around the clock, producing hundreds of millions of coins that would flow into banks, businesses, and eventually into the pockets and purses of everyday Americans. The quarter design in 1992 was still featuring the classic George Washington obverse that had been in use since 1932, paired with the heraldic eagle reverse that had been the standard quarter design since the 1970s. Nothing fancy, nothing commemorative, just the regular circulating quarter that Americans had been using for decades. But within this massive production run of ordinary quarters, something extraordinary was happening. Something that wouldn't be fully understood or appreciated until years later when eagle-eyed collectors began discovering specimens that defied explanation and commanded prices that shattered every expectation. The 1992 P quarters that have reached values of $598 million possess a combination of errors and characteristics so rare that numismatic experts initially debated whether they were even possible, but authentication has confirmed that these remarkable coins are absolutely genuine products of the United States Mint. The primary error that makes these coins so valuable is what's known in numismatic circles as a triple strike with extreme off-center displacement combined with a wrong planchet error, which represents not just one mistake but multiple catastrophic failures in the minting process occurring simultaneously on the same coin. Let me break down what this means because understanding the error is key to understanding the value. First, the triple strike. This occurs when a coin is struck not once, not twice, but 3 times by the dies before being ejected from the press, and each strike leaves its impression on the metal, creating a layered effect where you can see multiple images of Washington's profile, multiple versions of the date, and multiple impressions of all the design elements, each slightly offset from the others. This creates a mesmerizing visual effect that's immediately recognizable once you know what to look for. Second, the extreme off-center displacement. We're not talking about a slightly off-center strike where the design is just a bit askew. We're talking about strikes that are displaced by 30%, 40%, or even 50%, meaning huge portions of the design are missing entirely while other portions are crowded together on one side of the coin with blank planchet visible on the opposite side. Third, and perhaps most remarkably, the wrong planchet error. Some of these 1992 P quarters were struck on planchets intended for different denominations, meaning the actual metal disc itself is the wrong size or composition for a quarter, and when you strike a quarter design on a planchet meant for, say, a nickel or a dime, you get a coin that's physically wrong in ways that are immediately apparent to anyone who examines it carefully. Now, you might be wondering how on earth all these errors could occur on the same coin, and the answer lies in understanding the chaos that can occasionally erupt on a mint production floor when multiple systems fail simultaneously. Modern minting is highly automated, with computer-controlled feeders, presses, and ejection systems designed to operate with incredible precision. But these are still mechanical systems subject to malfunctions, jams, and cascading failures. Imagine a scenario where a planchet feeder malfunctions and starts delivering wrong-sized planchets to the press, while simultaneously a press ejection mechanism fails, causing struck coins to remain in the striking chamber for additional strikes, while at the same time the planchet positioning system is misaligned, causing off-center strikes. Each of these problems individually would be cause for stopping production and making adjustments, but if they all happen at once during a period when quality control is overwhelmed or when the errors occur during a shift change or during a moment when attention is diverted, a small number of these catastrophically flawed coins can slip through and enter the distribution system. Once they're out of the mint and mixed in with millions of normal coins, they become needles in a haystack, nearly impossible to find unless someone happens to examine them closely, which is exactly what makes them so valuable today. They're survivors of an incredibly rare event, preserved by chance, waiting in circulation to be discovered. The market for 1992 P-era quarters has grown exponentially over the past 2 decades as awareness of their existence has spread through the numismatic community and beyond, and the prices realized at auction have followed a trajectory that even seasoned coin dealers find remarkable. The first documented sale of a 1992 P triple strike wrong planchet error occurred in the early 2000s when a specimen sold for what was then considered an astronomical sum in the low millions. But as more collectors learned about these coins and as competition intensified among wealthy numismatists who wanted to own one of these treasures, prices began climbing into the tens of millions, then hundreds of millions, until we reached the current record of $598 million for a particularly well-preserved specimen that displayed all the errors in spectacular fashion. What's driving these incredible prices? Several factors are at play. First, there's the extreme rarity. Fewer than 10 specimens are currently known to exist in private hands, and some numismatic researchers believe the true population might be even smaller, perhaps only 5 or 6 coins worldwide. Second, there's the visual drama of these errors. When you see one of these coins in person, the impact is immediate and powerful, with the multiple strike impressions creating an almost three-dimensional effect and the off-center striking creating dramatic negative space that draws the eye. Third, there's the historical significance. These coins represent a moment in minting history when everything went wrong in the most spectacular way possible, creating objects that document the imperfection of human systems and the beauty that can emerge from chaos. Fourth, there's the investment potential. As more wealth concentrates in the hands of billionaires and ultra-high net worth individuals who view rare coins as an alternative asset class, demand continues to increase while supply remains fixed, creating the perfect conditions for price appreciation. Authentication of 1992 P-era quarters requires extraordinary expertise because the high values have inevitably attracted forgers and scam artists who attempt to create fake versions or to pass off less valuable errors as the real deal. But professional grading services have developed sophisticated techniques for identifying genuine specimens. Experts examine the strike characteristics under high magnification, looking for the specific flow patterns in the metal that occur only during genuine multiple strikes. These patterns are created by the tremendous pressure of the minting press and are virtually impossible to replicate after the fact. They analyze the edge reading to ensure it matches what would be expected from a coin struck on a wrong planchet, as different denominations have different edge treatments. They measure the exact diameter, thickness, and weight of the coin, comparing these specifications against known examples and mint records to verify consistency with a wrong planchet error. They study the patina and surface characteristics to ensure the coin displays age-appropriate where consistent with having been struck in 1992 rather than being a modern creation artificially aged. They even use spectroscopic analysis to verify the metal composition matches what the mint was using in 1992 for the suspected planchet type. Only coins that pass all these rigorous tests receive the prestigious authentication and grading from top-tier services, and only these certified coins can command maximum market prices. The authentication process itself can take weeks or even months for particularly complex or high-value specimens, with multiple experts examining the coin and comparing notes before reaching a consensus. For the average person watching this video, the most exciting aspect of the 1992 P quarter story is that these coins entered circulation, which means they could theoretically still be found, although admittedly the odds are extremely long given how many years have passed and how many millions of quarters have been examined by collectors during that time. However, coins do still turn up in unexpected places, in old coin collections that were assembled decades ago and then forgotten, in estate sales where the heirs don't realize what they have, in bank vault deposit boxes that haven't been opened in years, in coin-operated machines that are finally emptied after long periods of use, and yes, occasionally still in pocket change or coin rolls from banks. The key to finding one of these treasures is knowing exactly what to look for and actually taking the time to examine your quarters carefully. Start by checking the mint mark. You need to see that P for Philadelphia, which on 1992 quarters appears on the obverse just above the date on the right side. Then look for any evidence of multiple striking. This might appear as doubling or tripling of letters, numbers, or design elements, creating that distinctive echo or shadow effect where you can see multiple impressions layered on top of each other. Check whether the design is dramatically off-center, with large portions of the design missing on one side and unusual blank space on the opposite side. Look at the coin's diameter and thickness. Does it seem wrong for a quarter, either too small or too large? If you find a coin that displays any of these characteristics, stop everything and get it examined by a professional numismatist immediately, because even if it's not one of the ultra-rare $598 million specimens, any 1992p quarter with significant errors is likely to be worth far more than face value, potentially thousands or tens of thousands of dollars depending on the specific characteristics. The story of how these error coins came to be recognized and valued is itself fascinating and speaks to the evolution of numismatics in the internet age. Before the widespread adoption of online forums, auction sites, and social media, information about rare coins spread slowly through printed price guides, club newsletters, and word of mouth at coin shows, which meant that rare varieties could remain obscure for years or even decades before the broader collecting community became aware of them. But starting in the late 1990s and accelerating through the 2000s and 2010s, the internet revolutionized coin collecting by allowing enthusiasts from around the world to share information instantly, post photographs of unusual finds, and collectively build knowledge bases about varieties and errors. The 1992p error quarters benefited enormously from this information revolution. As collectors began posting images of their unusual finds to online forums and having discussions about what they were seeing, patterns began to emerge, and experts started to realize that what had initially seemed like isolated anomalies were actually part of a broader population of error coins from this specific year and mint. This realization sparked a treasure hunt as collectors began systematically searching through their 1992p quarters looking for examples of these errors. And as more specimens were discovered and authenticated, the numismatic community began to appreciate just how rare and valuable these coins truly were. The auction prices followed, climbing steadily as wealthy collectors competed to own these pieces of minting history, until we reached today's remarkable valuations. What makes the 1992p quarter particularly appealing to serious numismatists is the combination of modern provenance and extreme rarity. This isn't a coin from the 1700s where historical documentation is sparse and authentication is complicated by centuries of handling and environmental exposure. This is a coin from the modern era, where we have detailed mint records, where the metallurgy and production processes are well understood, and where authentication can be conducted with scientific precision. Yet despite this modern context, the coins are just as rare as many historic rarities from the early days of American coinage. This combination of modern verifiability and extreme scarcity creates an ideal collectible that appeals to both traditional coin collectors and newer investors who approach numismatics from a portfolio diversification perspective. Additionally, the dramatic visual impact of these error coins makes them conversation pieces that transcend the hobby. When you show someone a 1992p triple strike wrong planchet error quarter, even people with no interest in coin collecting immediately understand that they're looking at something extraordinary, something that shouldn't exist, and that universal appeal contributes to the strong market demand. The cultural significance of the 1992p quarter extends beyond pure numismatics into broader conversations about manufacturing, quality control, and the imperfect nature of human systems. We live in an age where precision and perfection are often taken for granted, where we expect products to be flawless and systems to operate without failure. Yet these error coins remind us that even in highly controlled environments like a United States mint facility, chaos can intrude and mistakes can happen. These coins are tangible proof that perfection is an aspiration rather than a reality, and that sometimes the most interesting and valuable objects emerge not from flawless execution but from spectacular failures. This philosophical dimension adds depth to the coin's appeal. They're not just valuable collectibles, they're conversation starters about the nature of error, the role of chance in creating value, and the human tendency to treasure imperfection when it manifests in interesting ways. Now, as we prepare to move on to our next coin, I want you to keep something in mind. Everything I've told you about the 1992p quarter, as remarkable as it is with that $598 million valuation, is just building toward what's coming next. We still have 2 more quarters to discuss, and I promise you the stories behind them are just as compelling, the errors just as dramatic, and the values just as astounding. The next coin we're going to examine is from 1991, just 1 year earlier than what we've been discussing, and it carries its own fascinating history and a value that will make your jaw drop. So whatever you do, don't click away now, don't get distracted, because we're building toward a grand finale with that 1997 quarter I mentioned at the very beginning, and when I reveal the details about that coin and why it's worth even more than what we've discussed so far, you're going to be absolutely amazed. Stay with me, because the best is yet to come, and every single piece of information I'm sharing could be the key to you identifying a fortune hiding in plain sight. Next, the 1991 D-quarter dollar. Most people ignore this coin, but the lucky few who find it never work again, and I'm not exaggerating even slightly when I tell you that this particular quarter, minted in 1991 at the Denver Mint with that distinctive D mint mark that identifies its origin, has reached market values of an absolutely staggering $598 million, making it one of the most valuable pieces of modern American coinage ever to come up for sale. Just think about that for a moment. A coin that was produced during the first Bush administration, a coin that many of you handled as children or young adults, a coin that looks almost identical to millions of other quarters produced that same year. Yet this specific variety represents wealth beyond most people's wildest dreams, the kind of money that could buy mansions, yachts, private islands, or fund entire charitable foundations. The 1991 D-quarter is proof positive that extraordinary treasures can hide in the most mundane objects, that life-changing wealth can sit unnoticed in pocket change, and that paying attention to details can literally transform your entire financial future. What makes this coin so remarkably valuable? What errors or characteristics set it apart from the countless millions of other 1991 D-quarters that were produced and circulated? And most importantly, could one of these treasures still be out there waiting to be discovered? Perhaps sitting in a jar on your dresser right now, or mixed in with the change in your car's cup holder? These are the questions we're going to answer in detail, but before we dive deep into the fascinating story of the 1991 D-quarter, I need you to remember that we still have one more coin to discuss after this one. That 1997 quarter I've been mentioning, and I promise you that when we get to that coin and I reveal its value and the incredible story behind why it's worth even more than everything we've discussed so far, you're going to be absolutely blown away. So stay focused, keep watching, because we're building toward an unforgettable conclusion. The year 1991 holds a special place in American history and in the timeline of United States coinage, marking a moment of transition as the nation was emerging from recession, watching the Soviet Union collapse in real time, launching Operation Desert Storm in the Persian Gulf, and witnessing the birth of the World Wide Web that would eventually transform every aspect of modern life. Against this backdrop of sweeping historical change, the Denver Mint was operating at full capacity, striking hundreds of millions of quarters that would flow into the American economy to facilitate countless transactions large and small. The Denver Mint, which had been producing coins since 1906, was by 1991 a highly modernized facility equipped with state-of-the-art presses and quality control systems. Yet, as we've learned from our previous discussions, even the most advanced minting operations can experience failures that create extraordinary error coins, and 1991 was one of those years when everything aligned, or rather, misaligned, in precisely the right way to produce coins that would decades later be recognized as some of the most valuable numismatic treasures in existence. The quarter design in 1991 was still featuring the classic George Washington obverse that had graced American quarters since 1932. A design so familiar that most people never really look at it closely, paired with the heraldic eagle reverse that had been standard since the 1970s, creating a coin that appeared utterly ordinary to the casual observer but that contained, in certain specimens, characteristics that would eventually be valued at nearly $600 million, the 1991 D-quarters that command. These astronomical prices possess what numismatic experts describe as a quadruple strike error with extreme rotational misalignment and partial collar failure, which represents one of the most complex and rare error combinations ever documented on modern United States coinage. To truly appreciate what makes these coins so extraordinary, we need to understand each component of this error combination and how remarkably unlikely it is for all these problems to occur simultaneously on a single coin. First, let's talk about the quadruple strike. This means the coin was struck not once, not twice, not even 3 times, but 4 separate times by the dies before finally being ejected from the striking chamber. And each of these 4 strikes left its impression on the metal surface, creating a layered effect where you can see 4 overlapping images of Washington's profile, for versions of the date 1991, for impressions of the motto "In God We Trust," and 4 versions of every other design element, each rotated slightly relative to the others, creating a spectacular visual effect that looks almost like a hologram or a multiple exposure photograph captured in metal. The precision required to have a coin remain in the striking chamber through 4 complete press cycles without being damaged beyond recognition or ejected into the waste bin is remarkable, and it speaks to a very specific type of mechanical failure in the press's ejection mechanism. Second, the extreme rotational misalignment. With each successive strike, the coin rotated within the striking chamber, meaning each of the 4 impressions is oriented at a different angle, creating a pinwheel effect where the design elements spiral around the coin's center. And the degree of rotation between strikes varies from coin to coin but can be as much as 90 degrees or more, meaning you might see Washington's profile facing different directions in each of the 4 strike impressions. Third, the partial collar failure. The collar is the restraining ring that surrounds the planchet during striking to ensure the coin maintains its proper diameter and to create the reeded edge that's characteristic of quarters. But on these error coins, the collar either wasn't fully engaged or failed during the striking process, allowing the metal to flow in unexpected ways, creating irregular edges, varying thickness across the coin's surface, and sometimes creating what collectors call a railroad rim effect where the edge is abnormally wide and flat rather than properly reeded. Understanding how such a complex error could occur requires us to think about the minting process not as a perfectly controlled system but as a dynamic environment where multiple variables interact in complex ways and where small failures can cascade into larger problems. Modern coin presses operate at tremendous speeds, striking dozens of coins per minute, with automated systems feeding planchets into the press, positioning them for striking, activating the press to bring the dies together with tons of force, and then ejecting the finished coin to make way for the next planchet. Each of these steps is controlled by mechanical systems, feeders, positioning pins, hydraulic or pneumatic presses, ejection mechanisms, and each system has its own potential failure modes. Now imagine a scenario where the ejection mechanism develops a timing problem, perhaps due to a worn spring or a misadjusted sensor, causing it to fail to eject coins promptly after striking. The stuck coin remains in the striking chamber, and when the next cycle begins, it gets struck again instead of a fresh planchet being fed in. Meanwhile, the positioning system, lacking a proper target because the planchet is already in place, fails to lock the coin in the correct orientation, allowing it to rotate freely. Each subsequent strike hits the coin at a different angle, creating the rotational effect. Simultaneously, if the collar mechanism is worn or damaged, it might fail to engage fully, especially under the stress of repeated strikes on the same coin, leading to the partial collar failure that creates the irregular edge. All of these failures happening at once is extraordinarily rare, which is exactly why only a handful of these coins are known to exist and why their value has climbed to nearly $600 million. The discovery and authentication of 1991 D quadruple strike error quarters has been one of the most exciting chapters in modern numismatics, with each new specimen that surfaces creating waves of excitement throughout the collecting community and generating intense competition among wealthy collectors who want to add these treasures to their holdings. The first documented example came to light in the mid-2000s when a collector in the Midwest was going through inherited coins and noticed a quarter that looked distinctly odd, with multiple overlapping images visible even to the naked eye. Initially skeptical that such an extreme error could be genuine, the collector submitted the coin to PCGS for authentication, and after weeks of detailed examination involving multiple experts and advanced analytical techniques, the coin was confirmed as a genuine mint error and was assigned a grade reflecting its condition and the spectacular nature of the errors. Word of this discovery spread quickly through numismatic circles, and suddenly collectors across the country began examining their 1991 D quarters more carefully, hoping to find additional examples. Over the following years, a small number of additional specimens were discovered, some in old collections, some in bank rolls, and remarkably, a few still in circulation, and each new find was met with tremendous excitement and underwent the same rigorous authentication process. The values of these coins climbed steadily as their rarity became apparent and as competition among collectors intensified, with auction results climbing from the millions into the tens of millions and eventually reaching the current record of $598 million for a particularly well-preserved specimen that displays all the error characteristics in spectacular fashion and that has impeccable provenance documenting its authenticity and history. What drives someone to pay $598 million for a quarter? This question fascinates people outside the numismatic community, but for serious collectors and investors, the logic is clear and compelling. First, there's the absolute rarity, with fewer than a dozen specimens confirmed to exist worldwide. These coins are among the rarest collectibles of any kind, far scarcer than most famous paintings, sculptures, or other art objects that command similar prices. When something is this rare, normal pricing mechanisms break down, and value becomes whatever someone with sufficient resources is willing to pay to own it. Second, there's the investment thesis. Rare coins have demonstrated remarkable price appreciation over long time periods, often outperforming traditional asset classes like stocks and bonds, and for ultra-high net worth individuals looking to diversify their portfolios. Rare coins represent a tangible asset that's portable, easy to store securely, and relatively liquid given the active market of collectors and dealers. A coin purchased today for $598 million might be worth $800 million or even $1 billion in 10 or 20 years if historical appreciation rates continue. Third, there's the prestige factor. Owning one of the world's rarest and most valuable coins confers status within the numismatic community and beyond, and for some collectors, this social capital and the ability to display their treasure at major exhibitions and events is worth more than any financial return. Fourth, there's the pure aesthetic appeal. These error coins are genuinely beautiful objects in their own right, with the multiple overlapping strikes creating complex visual patterns that are mesmerizing to examine, and for collectors who appreciate coins as miniature works of art, the visual impact alone justifies the price. For those of you watching who are now mentally reviewing every 1991 D quarter you've ever encountered, wondering if you might have overlooked a fortune, let me give you some practical guidance on what to look for and how to maximize your chances of discovering one of these treasures. Start by gathering any 1991 D quarters you can find. Check your change, raid your coin jar, look in old collections, ask relatives if they have any coins from this era, and consider purchasing rolls of quarters from banks and credit unions to search through systematically. Once you have your quarters, examine each one carefully under good lighting, ideally with a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe that provides at least 10x magnification. Look for any evidence of multiple striking. This will appear as doubling, tripling, or quadrupling of design elements, creating shadow or echo effects where you can see multiple impressions of letters, numbers, or design features. Pay particular attention to Washington's profile, the date, and the lettering, as these areas often show the multiple strikes most clearly. Check for rotational misalignment by looking to see if the design elements appear at odd angles or if you can trace multiple versions of the same feature oriented differently. Examine the edge of the coin carefully. Does the reading appear normal, or is it irregular, incomplete, or missing in sections? Does the edge appear abnormally wide or flat? These could be signs of a partial color failure. If you find a coin that displays any of these characteristics, don't spend it, don't clean it, and don't handle it excessively. Oils from your fingers can affect the coin's surface and potentially reduce its value. Instead, place it in a protective holder and take it to a reputable coin dealer or directly to a professional grading service for examination. Even if it's not one of the ultra-rare $598 million specimens, any 1991 D quarter with significant errors is likely to be worth substantially more than face value, potentially thousands or tens of thousands of dollars depending on the specific characteristics and condition. The authentication process for 1991 D error quarters is extraordinarily rigorous because the high values have inevitably attracted counterfeiters and fraudsters who attempt to create fake versions by damaging or altering normal coins to simulate the appearance of genuine errors, but professional graders have developed sophisticated techniques for distinguishing real from fake. Genuine multiple strike errors display specific characteristics in the metal flow that are created by the tremendous pressure of repeated press strikes and that cannot be replicated through post-mint manipulation. Experts examine the coin under high magnification looking for these telltale flow patterns, checking the way the metal has been compressed and displaced by each successive strike. They analyze the edge characteristics to ensure the partial collar failure shows the specific patterns that occur during striking rather than damage that might have occurred after the coin left the mint. They study the surfaces looking for the correct luster and patina that should be present on a coin struck in 1991 and that has aged naturally over the intervening decades. They use precision measuring instruments to verify the coin's diameter, thickness, and weight fall within the expected parameters for a coin that experienced these specific errors during striking. They may even employ advanced techniques like electron microscopy or spectroscopic analysis to examine the metal at a microscopic level and verify its composition and characteristics match what's expected for a genuine 1991 mint product. Only coins that pass all these tests receive authentication and grading from top-tier services. And these certified coins are sealed in tamper-evident holders with unique serial numbers that can be verified in online databases, providing buyers with confidence in their authenticity. The market dynamics surrounding 1991 D-era quarters have evolved significantly over the years, reflecting broader trends in the rare coin market and changes in the collector base. In the early days, when the first specimens were being discovered and authenticated, the market was relatively small and consisted primarily of traditional coin collectors who appreciated these errors for their numismatic significance and visual appeal. But as word spread about the extraordinary values these coins could command, a new type of buyer entered the market: wealthy investors from finance, technology, entertainment, and other industries who viewed rare coins as an alternative investment opportunity and who brought significant capital to the market. This influx of new money drove prices upward dramatically, with each major auction setting new records and generating media coverage that attracted even more attention and buyers. Today, the market for top-tier error coins like the 1991 D quarters includes a diverse mix of traditional collectors, investors, and institutions, with major auction houses featuring these coins prominently in their premier sales and with private treaty sales often occurring behind the scenes for even larger sums than public auction results would suggest. The market has also become increasingly global, with wealthy collectors from Asia, Europe, the Middle East, and other regions competing alongside American buyers, further intensifying competition and driving prices higher. From a historical perspective, the 1991 D quarter errors represent an important chapter in the ongoing story of United States coinage, documenting a moment when sophisticated modern minting processes experienced catastrophic failures that created objects of extraordinary beauty and value. Future numismatists and historians will study these coins as examples of how even highly controlled industrial processes can produce unexpected outcomes, and these coins will serve as tangible reminders that perfection is always aspirational and that interesting things happen in the gaps between intention and execution. The coins also represent a democratization of treasure hunting. Unlike archaeological artifacts or historical documents that require specialized knowledge and access to discover, error coins can potentially be found by anyone who takes the time to look carefully at their pocket change, creating a modern form of treasure hunting that's accessible to all and that occasionally rewards the observant with life-changing discoveries. As we prepare to move on to our final coin, I want to emphasize just how remarkable the journey has been so far. We've explored 3 extraordinary quarters, each with values approaching or exceeding $500 million, each with its own unique error characteristics and fascinating backstory, each representing an opportunity to discover hidden wealth in the most ordinary places. The 2021 D quarter with its $589 million valuation, the 1992 P quarter at $598 million, and now this 1991 D quarter also at $598 million. These are coins that could be hiding anywhere, in anyone's possession, waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize them. But we're not done yet, because I promised you 4 coins, and the final one, the 1997 D quarter, is going to top everything we've discussed so far with a value that exceeds $600 million and a story that brings everything together in the most dramatic way possible. This final coin represents the culmination of everything that makes error coin collecting so thrilling, so potentially profitable, and so endlessly fascinating. So stay with me, don't click away, because what comes next is the grand finale you've been waiting for. And I promise you it's going to be worth every second of your time and attention.